So guys, most people think of dividend investing as this slow, ineffective way to build wealth, but in my experience so far, that has been far from the truth, especially here in 2025. I've been investing for about 5 years now, and in this time, I've seen more gains and have made more passive income than I ever thought I would, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I'm going to share with you exactly how much money I've made with dividend investing so far these last 5 years. But before we get to that, guys, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment below and let me know, how long have you been investing for? I would love to hear about where you're at in your investing journey. Now guys, when I first started investing, I actually had 2 different accounts. I had one account over on Charles Schwab, which is an account that I had had for a long time. I had this account set up for me when I was younger as a custodian account, and it's just one that I, continued to have throughout my young adulthood in my 20s. And most of the money invested in this account was not in dividend stocks. I had some companies like Procter & Gamble, I had CRISPR Therapeutics, both of which I actually did very well with. I also had other ones like PG&E, which was the opposite. I ended up selling that one for quite a big loss, and SiriusXM amongst a handful of other different stocks. And then in addition to my Charles Schwab account, I also had this second one over on Robinhood that was valued at about $6,600 by the time I started taking investing more seriously. And I'd started building up this chunk of change a few years prior. I'd started building it first over in Acorns, and then at some point I'd moved that over to Stash. And then finally, once I decided I wanted to be a bit more consistent and serious about this investing stuff, I transferred everything into Robinhood. And up until that point, when I decided to really get deeper into this investing stuff, I was maybe only investing like $5 per week or maybe $25 per week here and there, and it wasn't consistent at all. There were actually probably long stretches of time where I didn't invest anything whatsoever. Whenever I had extra money, which was not very often at all in my early and mid-20s, and whenever I was feeling responsible, I'd throw some into Acorns, I would throw some into Stash. But in my early 20s, guys, as I'm sure you can imagine, I think a lot of us were this way, this stuff was really not my priority at all. I couldn't care less about investing. But anyway, guys, back to my Robinhood account here. As opposed to what I had going on in Charles Schwab, this account was more dividend focused, and I own companies like AT&T, Starbucks, Chevron, Bank of America, and Procter & Gamble, some of which I still have today, some of which I sold out of. But with these 2 portfolios combined, Charles Schwab and Robinhood, I had about $14,500 invested when I decided to really hit this investing stuff hard. When I was getting started in that first year, in any given month, I was bringing in anywhere from about 50 cents in dividends on the low end to almost $26 by the end of 2020, which is quite a big range. But I will say those higher months really started to kind of make the light bulb turn on in my head. Up until that point, as you can probably tell by the 2 accounts, I really didn't have a clear strategy. I wasn't really focused in what I was doing. I felt like I was kind of floundering. But like I said, I'd come to like the idea of getting these dividend payments, and it wasn't going to be long after this that I decided to just go all in on dividend investing. And I'll tell you more about that in just a moment, but first I want to show you what this first year of investing looked like. So in the entirety of 2020, my total dividend income for the year was just over $100, $108.23, which is quite a ways from being able to retire, but 3 figures, guys, without having to lift a finger. I was so stoked about that. And in my highest month, I received almost $26, and that would have been in December to close out 2020. And as far as the returns go in that year, it was pretty weak, guys. As we can see, I underperformed pretty much everything. I was only up about 3.5% for the year. 2020 was kind of a rough year, and I was trying to find my groove and get my bearings with all of this. But anyway, I underperformed everything by a long shot. As we can see, the S&P was up almost 20%. The Dow was up about 10%. The NASDAQ absolutely crushed it in 2020, and I also underperformed SCHD by quite a lot. SCHD was up by almost 15%. So, I got off to kind of a rocky start in 2020, but it's all good, guys. Like I said, this was my very first year. I was brand new to all of this stuff, just really still trying to figure out how it all works. And this next year, in 2021, it told a completely different story. Now, like I was saying a moment ago, guys, by the end of my first year of investing, I was getting really hyped on the idea of receiving consistent dividend payments, and I love the idea of getting passive income from these great businesses that I was now an owner of. And that's one of the really cool things about investing in stocks that I think is so easy for us to forget. As investors, we are technically business owners because when you buy a share of a stock, you're buying a piece of ownership in that business. And what's great about this is that you don't have to run the company yourself. You don't don't have to handle operations, manage employees, or deal with any of the other headaches. You can just kick back, and if the business does well, you get a share of that success. And with that said, what if you could take that same hands-off approach, but own a whole business outright instead of just a piece of one? Well, that's where the sponsor of today's video, Limits Express Company, comes in, and I want to tell you a little bit more about them. So Limits Express is a company that fully manages Amazon stores for their clients using Amazon's fulfillment service, known as Amazon FBA or Fulfillment by Amazon. Essentially how it works is sellers send their products to Amazon's warehouses and Amazon takes care of the rest. It's a completely hands-off way of running an e-commerce store, and Limits Express makes it even more hands-off by setting up and managing the whole thing for you. They run fully managed Amazon FBA stores selling everyday consumer staples like toothpaste, mouthwash, deodorant, razors, stuff like that. You know, products people buy no matter what. And the products they sell are made by some of the biggest brands in the world, household names like Procter & Gamble and Colgate-Palmolive, which are companies we talk about quite a bit here on the channel. Now, what I really appreciate about Limits Express is their transparency. In the same way that I document my dividend investing journey here on YouTube, they're documenting their entire business on their YouTube channel. They make educational videos about Amazon FBA and also put out regular updates showcasing their clients' results. Plus, as a client, you can even visit their warehouse, meet the team, and see exactly how your business is being run. They actually encourage their clients to come visit. So like I said, Limits Express does all the heavy lifting and handles all the details of managing your Amazon store. You just split the profits. They're fully transparent, performance-based, and they only make money when you do, so they are highly incentivized to drive returns for their clients. And when it comes to returns, they're legally required to report their returns to the FTC. And according to those disclosures, which you can find on their website, clients are seeing average returns on investment of about 14% every month, which is a huge number when you think about compounding over time. Now, if you're interested in learning more about generating passive income through Amazon FBA, just click the link in the description of the video or in the pinned comment, or just scan this QR code right here to book a free 30-minute Zoom call directly with Kyle, one of the company's co-founders. If you're thinking about getting into Amazon FBA, I truly believe the best way to do it is just by outsourcing it to the pros who live and breathe this stuff every day. So definitely set up a call and start generating some more passive income with Limits Express Company. Anyway, guys, getting back to it, like I was saying earlier, dividend investing just clicked for me. In my mind, reaching financial freedom is when you get to a point where your passive income is paying your bills. So as a beginner investor, it was straightforward enough for me to understand that all I need is X dollars in dividends coming in every month, and then I don't need to work anymore. You know, once my dividend income surpasses my paycheck, I should no longer need my job. And one of the big reasons I decided to even start investing in the first place was because I was working a job that just truthfully, guys, I really was not happy doing. And because of that, you know, I felt like I needed a way out. And I figured that if I could just start investing and put as much as I can into my portfolio and build that up, then at some point, you know, I could eventually quit this job. And I'll tell you what, in that bad situation, knowing that I could over time invest my way out of it gave me hope. And with each contribution, with each new investment I made into my portfolio, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel just getting brighter and brighter. And even though it wasn't, you know, a whole lot of money at first, only about $100 or so in my first year, I still understood that if I were to fully commit to dividend investing, if I really decided to just go all in on this stuff, I could probably make this dividend snowball grow a lot bigger and make it grow a lot faster than it was at that time. So that's exactly what I did. Sometime around the start of 2021, I decided to fully commit to dividend investing. I was going all in on this thing. And so what I did was I combined my two separate portfolios into one. And upon doing so, I immediately noticed a huge difference. Taking a look at my total dividend income by the end of this second year, I went from bringing in just over $100 in 2020 to by the end of 2021 generating $922.97. I almost, well, basically 9x'd my dividend income from the prior year. So a huge year-over-year difference. And also with that, my highest month, which would have been in November of that year, was almost $150, which was more than I made in the entirety of my first year of investing. Not only that, but the returns were just astronomical in this second year as well. My portfolio, as opposed to the prior year, absolutely crushed the rest of the market, and I saw a near 32% return in this year. And seeing that tremendous amount of growth, as I'm sure you can imagine, absolutely put me on cloud nine. And also seeing my monthly income just get higher and higher and higher throughout the year as I continued investing into this portfolio was just like the best feeling in the world. And I didn't have to do anything for that to happen either. That's the craziest part. Anyway, guys, this brings us into year 3, which would have been in 2022, which was a very rough year for the stock market. Pretty much everything was in the red, but it was another very fantastic year for my portfolio. Looking at the total returns for the year, as we can see, the entire market just plummeted. I mean, the S&P was down almost 20%, the NASDAQ was down over 33%, and with all of that craziness going on, my portfolio was only down 0.1%. So a lot more defense than the rest of the market and just crazy outperformance this year. And on the dividend income side, things looked really good as well. In total, I brought in almost $1,800 for the year, which would have been my first year generating 4 figures in dividend income, which was very cool, guys. Once again, didn't have to lift a finger, and in this year, I brought in over $100 every single month, and I was less than $1 away from averaging $150 per month, which was very sweet. And I know, guys, $150 a month is still quite a ways away from being able to live off the dividends, but still, this was only my 3rd year. I still really hadn't been doing this for all that long, and I was bringing in more per month than I had made in the entirety of my first year. And along with that, guys, year 3 brought about the first month that I'd ever made over $200 in dividends. That would have been in November, and I brought in $217.19, which was over twice as much as I made in the entirety of my first year. And so overall, guys, even though the performance of the overall market not being that great in 2022, it was a fantastic year for me, and some of this income that I brought in came from my new Roth IRA. At the start of the year, I'd created this new account on M1 Finance, which was set up to be totally different than my main account on Charles Schwab. I wanted my Roth IRA to be completely hands-off, completely automated. I didn't want to have to think about it whatsoever. I wanted it to be totally out of sight, out of mind. And while my main account was filled with a hand-picked collection of individual stocks, my Roth IRA only consisted of ETFs. And at this point, all I have in that account is just SCHD and VOO, which is an S&P 500 ETF, and I dollar cost average into both of those every single week. So guys, this brings us into year 4, and as opposed to the prior 2 years, 2023 was just kind of decent in terms of performance. As we can see, I still saw some decent returns. My portfolio was up 10.5% in 2023, but still I underperformed the rest of the market by quite a bit. In this year, the S&P was up over 26%, the Dow was up 16%, and the NASDAQ was up 44.5% in this 1 year, which is just crazy, but I did manage to outperform SCHD in 2023 by about 6 percentage points, so at least there's that. But then on the dividend income side of things, we continued to make some steady progress. In total for the year, I brought in $2,235, so I was finally bringing in over $2,000 in income, and I was almost averaging $200 per month in this year as well. And with that, my highest month this year would have been in November, which historically has seemed to be a pretty solid month for me, but in this month, I brought in $230.92, which would have beat my previous record from the year before by about $13. So like I said, guys, 2023 was just kind of There wasn't really anything special to write home about in this year. But 2024 until today has been completely different, and I'm really excited to show you where things are at right now. So guys, this brings us into year 5, and we're going to look at this period from the start of 2024, which was last year, until today. And in this time period, the portfolio has just been unstoppable. Looking at my total returns over these last 14 and a half months or so, things are just looking so good, guys. My portfolio is up 26%, which is outperforming everything else. The S&P is trailing me by a few percentage points. The Dow's only up 16%, so we're outperforming that by quite a bit. We're also beating the NASDAQ by a few percentage points, and we're absolutely crushing SCHD by over 10% in this time period. So overall, these last 14 months have just been killer. And with that, guys, these are going to be my returns ever since I first started investing. And as we can see, my portfolio has seen profits of over 104%, which on an annualized basis amounts to 17.6% on average over these last 5 years. Very solid returns. I couldn't ask for anything more, especially considering this is dominating everything else. I don't know how, but I'm outperforming the S&P on average by almost 4% every year. The Dow by looks like about 6%, the NASDAQ by about the same, and SCHD by about 5%. So 5 years in, guys, I'd say we're off to a killer start. Like I said, I couldn't have asked for anything more. But with that, in the world of investing, 5 years is really not a long period of time at all. This is still just a drop in the bucket. So let's keep this thing going and see how things continue to shake out from here. But anyway, now looking at my dividend income, this is just for 2024. This isn't including anything year to date. In 2024, I totaled $2,820 in dividends, and on average, I was bringing in about $235 every single month, which is so awesome. And also, 2024 was the first year, actually July 2024 to be specific, was the first time I brought in over $300 of dividends in 1 month, which is just so crazy to think about. $300 without having to lift a finger. And that was the only time since then that I've generated that amount of income. I've never hit over $300 per month since then, but I'm thinking here in 2025, we'll have at least a couple of those months. At least I'm hoping so. And with that, guys, this is what my full portfolio is looking like right now. And we are viewing this using my dividend portfolio tracking spreadsheet, which you can start using for free. There is a link to download this spreadsheet in the description of the video. But from the time I started investing until now, guys, we have taken the portfolio from about $14,000 to $94,000. So quite a big jump in these few years. We are coming up on 100K in this portfolio very quickly. And on the dividend income side of things, my projected annual income moving forward is $3,258, which breaks down to an average of $271 in dividends per month. Now, obviously, guys, I won't be able to retire just yet, but I'm still so much farther along today than I was when I first started. And if you take anything away from this video, let it be this. If a simpleton like me can start investing with no prior experience or without a clue in the world of how any of this stuff works, if I can do it, guys, then so can you. Anyone can do this. The beauty of investing today is that you don't need a fortune to get started. Even if you only had $5 per week, you can still put your money to work. And if you don't know what to buy, there are plenty of great ETFs out there like VOO or SCHD, like I was talking about earlier. That's what I have in my Roth IRA that can do the heavy lifting for you. But while getting started today is easy, avoiding mistakes is the challenging part. Trust me, guys, I have made pretty much every mistake in the book so far. And in this next video right over here, I'm telling you about the 3 biggest dividend investing mistakes I have ever made. So click right over here to learn about those, and I'll see you in the next one.